The silence of space around the Zhanji homeworld was not peaceful. It was the quiet of a predator holding its breath. Commander Taiho watched from the bridge of the dreadnought Molten Fist, his broad, scarred hands resting on the railing. The screens showed the familiar, angry red swirl of his volcanic planet below. His people were born of fire and pressure, their skin tough as cooled rock. They were a cornerstone of the Deathworld Alliance, a pact of species forged not in diplomacy, but in shared hardship. They were the galaxy's survivors. The unbreakable dot and alarm tore through the quiet, not a frantic chirp, but a deep, resonant gong. The tactical holodisplay at the center of the bridge flickered to life, fed by data from the furthest Alliance outpost. A ship had emerged from a tier in subspace. It did not broadcast. It did not identify. It simply began to move. Its designation, assigned by terrified scouts, was the Void Reaper. Taiho leaned in, his dark eyes narrowing. The ship was a monstrosity of dark, non-reflective material, shaped like a twisted spearhead the size of a small moon. "Show me the Hellscar footage," he ordered, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. The image changed. It showed the verdant, high-gravity world of Bulsari, its massive, dense forests and mountain ranges home to a people of immense strength and resilience. The Bulsari Defense Fleet, all heavy armor and gravity cannon batteries, moved to intercept the intruder. At their head was Battlemaster Yuna's ship, the Stonebreaker. Yuna appeared on a side screen, her face all sharp angles and focused intensity, her hair shaved close to her scalp. "It ignores hails," she reported, her voice clipped. "It is heading for Bulsari's primary agricultural belt. We engage." The Alliance watched. The Bulsari ships opened fire, their kinetic rounds designed to shatter asteroids. They struck the Void Reaper's hull and simply vanished, absorbed in a ripple of dark energy. The giant ship did not change course. It did not fire back with beams or missiles. A low-frequency pulse, invisible to the naked eye, washed out from it. Where it touched the Bulsari ships, their mighty armor didn't explode. It disintegrated. The molecular bonds holding the metal together snapped. The Stonebreaker and its sister vessels came apart like sandcastles in a wave, crumbling into clouds of fine, useless dust. The Void Reaper continued on, unleashing a beam of chilling white light upon the planetary surface below. Where the light touched, life didn't burn. It was erased, turned to inert frozen glass. A cold fury settled in Taiho's gut. This was not war. This was eradication. "Sound the full Alliance muster," he commanded. "Rally point, the nebula at Corbin's star. We stop it there, or we do not stop it at all." Across the Alliance, worlds mobilized. From the toxic atmosphere of Krill came fast, needle-like ships that weaponized their own corrosive rains. From the perpetual hurricane world of Valen came vessels that harnessed the power of storms. The Molten Fist was joined by the Pride of Zhanji, ships with hulls forged in planetary mantles and plasma drills for weapons. It was the greatest concentration of martial power the Deathworlders had ever assembled. In a secure channel, Yuna's face appeared again. She had escaped the destruction of her flagship on a fast scout vessel. Her expression was grim, the loss of her crew a fresh wound in her eyes. "Its weapon has a cycle," she said. "A 3-minute recharge between pulses. It is the only opening we saw. It is all we need," Taiho replied. "We hit it with everything, all at once. It will break." The nebula at Corbin's star was a vast, glowing cloud of gas, chosen as a battlefield for its minimal civilian presence. The Alliance fleet was a terrifying spectacle of diverse, brutal technology, arranged in a formidable battlesphere. The Void Reaper approached, an obsidian shadow against the pastel light of the nebula. It did not slow. It did not deviate. Taiho stood on his bridge, the Alliance fleet linked to his command. "All vessels," he broadcast, his voice echoing across 100 worlds. "For our homes." Fire. Space lit up. Concentrated plasma streams from Janji merged with gravity implosion bolts from surviving Bulsari ships. Corrosive torpedoes from Krill streaked alongside lightning cannons from Valen. It was a storm of destructive energy capable of scorching a world clean. It struck the Void Reaper. A shimmering hexagonal energy field flared across its hull. The Alliance's awesome firepower splashed against it, diffused, and was absorbed. The dark ship sailed through the apocalyptic barrage as if it were a light spring rain. Not a scratch, not a flicker of damage on its impossible hull. Before the stunned Alliance could process the failure, the Void Reaper responded. That same low-frequency pulse emanated from it, a silent, expanding sphere of death. The Alliance's sensor officers screamed warnings a second before it hit. The molten fist shuddered. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through the deck, climbing in pitch until it was a teeth-rattling shriek. Taiho watched in horror as the thick viewport in front of him developed a spiderweb of cracks, not from impact, but from the very material losing its integrity. Alarms blared as hull plates on the starboard side simply crumbled into metallic powder, venting atmosphere into the void. All around, the same nightmare unfolded. A Valen hurricane chaser twisted and fell apart like dry leaves. A krill toxin barge silently dissolved into a green-tinged cloud. Yuna's new command ship, a Bulsari heavy cruiser, tried to turn, its engines flaring, but the pulse caught its stern. The back third of the ship disintegrated, the rest spinning away. Powerless. The Void Reaper, untouched, began to power its main sterilization beam, aiming not at the broken fleet, but past it, on a trajectory towards the heart of the Alliance and its densely populated core worlds. Taiho clung to his command console, his ship wounded and dying around him. The bridge was filled with smoke and the red glow of emergency lights. He looked at the tactical display, now showing only a handful of Alliance vessels still reporting, all crippled. Their strength, their pride, their entire philosophy of survival through toughness, it had meant nothing. They had faced the ultimate predator, and they were not just losing. They were being deleted from existence. A young communications officer, his face pale under his Janji stone-gray skin, looked up. "Commander." A signal. From the outer relay. "It's the Terrans. They have received our distress call and request battle data." For a moment, Taiho felt a surge of futile anger. The Terrans, Earth, the new members. They came from a soft world with mild gravity and a gentle climate. Their integration had been a formality, a political gesture. They were clever, it was said, good with machines and theory. But in the face of this, they were insects. He was about to order the officer to ignore it, to let them save themselves while they could. But then he looked again at the viewport, at the monstrous shape of the Void Reaper, moving inexorably towards the billions of lives in the core systems. He had no weapons left, no strategy, only desperation. "Send it," Taiho said, the words ash in his mouth. "Send them everything. The scans, the weapon signatures, the battle logs. All of it." He turned back to the screen, watching the deadliest ship in known space begin its final charge. He had just called for help from a species that had never known a true Deathworld. He felt, in that moment, that he had just signed the Alliance's final, pathetic death warrant. The battle data from the Deathworld Alliance arrived at Sol Station, not as a victory report, but as a funeral dirge encoded in light. In the quiet, clean environment of the primary analysis chamber, Admiral Jisoo watched the playback for the third time. Her face, usually calm and analytical, was a mask of focused intensity. The sheer scale of the destruction was hard to comprehend. On another screen, Admiral Min Seok, a man with a talent for seeing patterns in chaos, ran simulations, his fingers flying over the holographic controls. They met it head-on, Min Seok said, his voice quiet. Every time. They used the most powerful weapons they had, directly against the hull, and it absorbed every joule of energy, Jisoo finished. Pausing the recording at the moment, the Void Reaper's pulse weapon activated. It doesn't negate force. It eats it, converts it. Their attack made it stronger. The two Terrans were not like the Alliance commanders. They had not been forged in fire or crushing gravity. Their world, Earth, was a paradise of moderate climates by comparison. Their strength was not in their skin or bone density, but in the space between their ears. They saw problems as systems to be understood, not as walls to be smashed through. Jisoo zoomed in on the sensor data from the Molten Fist during the pulse attack. Look at the energy signature. Right before the main pulse, there's a localized drop in the field density around the weapon's aperture. A power transfer cycle. Yuna was right. It's a recharge period. 3 minutes, Min Seok noted, calling up the Alliance's own sparse analysis. They saw it as a window to attack harder. They tried. It did nothing. Because they were still attacking the hull, Jisoo said, a spark in her eyes. She changed the display, pulling up the schematics of the Void Reaper extrapolated from 1,000 fleeting scans. They treated the recharge as a weakness in its armor. What if it's not a weakness in its armor, but a necessity of its system? A moment where it is internally vulnerable, not externally? Min Seok leaned back, stroking his chin. You're saying we shouldn't try to break the shield. We should try to give it indigestion. A faint smile touched Jisoo's lips. Something like that. It expects force. Its entire defensive paradigm is built to absorb and redirect kinetic and directed energy. What does it not expect? They worked through the cycle of Earth's Day, fueled by a desperate curiosity. They brought in specialists. Captain Daewon, a tactical prodigy known for his unorthodox wargaming solutions, was summoned from the Mars Proving Grounds. He studied the Void Reaper's engagement patterns, its predictable turns, its unwavering focus on primary threats. It's a machine, Daewon concluded, his youthful face serious. A very smart one, but a machine. It has protocols. Look at its target priority during a Hellscar engagement. It ignored the smaller, faster krill ships until they scored a direct hit. Then it eliminated them instantly. It reacts to direct threats in a hierarchical manner. It doesn't seem to have a concept for nuisance. Meanwhile, Specialist Sora, the head of Advanced Extravehicular Engineering, was examining the hull composition scans. The material is a perfect energy sink, she reported, her voice crisp over the comm. But our scans show microfractures, wear and tear from cosmic debris over what must be centuries. It self-repairs. That means it has external conduits, maintenance pathways. They'd be hardened, but they wouldn't be shielded with the same field as the main hull. It wouldn't be efficient. A picture began to form, not of a mythical monster, but of a fantastically powerful tool with design limitations. The Alliance had tried to smash the tool with a bigger hammer. The Terrans began to look for the off switch, or at least the loose wire dot in the main strategy room. Jisoo addressed the assembled officers. The mood was grim but focused. On a large screen, the Void Reaper loomed over the broken Alliance fleet. The Deathworld Alliance fights with courage and power. Jisoo began. They have shown us what this enemy is capable of. But they have also, in their defeat, shown us how it thinks. It thinks in terms of power. We must think in terms of process. She brought up a new schematic, a Terran plan. It did not feature a single massive battleship. We will not form a battle line. Captain Daewon will command a dispersed swarm fleet from the stealth cruiser Shadows cast. Its primary role is not to deliver a killing blow, but to observe, to distract, and to create a sensor shadow. Daiwan took over, highlighting fast, agile vessels. These are our mosquitoes. Their job is to harass, to fire low-yield projectiles that won't be absorbed but will force point defense tracking, to deploy chaff and focused EM pulses at specific coordinates not to damage, but to blind, to create static in its perception for precisely timed windows. Then, Minseok highlighted a different class of ship, blocky, unglamorous engineering vessels. While the mosquitoes are a distraction, these will move here. He indicated a blind spot in the Void Reaper's sensor sweep, a tiny shadow cast by its own immense structure. Their cargo will not be warheads. It will be Specialist Sora and her engineering teams in boarding pods. A murmur went through the room. Boarding the galaxy's most deadly weapon sounded like suicide. Sora's face appeared on screen. The pods will be non-metallic composites, coated in sensor-absorbent material. No power signature until the last moment. We are not soldiers. We are technicians. Our mission is to access those external conduits, to read the data flowing through them, and to find a systemic vulnerability. We are not looking for a heart to stab. We are looking for a circuit to overload. The plan was audacious. It was the opposite of everything the Deathworld Alliance stood for. There was no honor in it, no test of strength. It was a trick, a surgical strike at the mind of a machine. A senior officer from the Brazilian sector raised a concern. Admiral, even if we find a vulnerability, what then? We have seen its hull withstand everything. Jisoo nodded. We have, so we must use what it does not consider a weapon. We must use information. We find the flaw in the system, and then we design a key that fits that exact lock. Not a battering ram. A key. As the fleet made final preparations, the sense of dread was palpable, but it was mixed with a fierce, sharp energy. They were not going out to die gloriously. They were going out to solve a problem. On the bridge of the Shadows cast, Captain Daewon looked over his swarm controls. He thought of Commander Taiho and Battlemaster Yuna, warriors of immense pride, now shattered. He did not feel superior. He felt a heavy responsibility. Their way had failed. Earth's way, the way of the clever, soft people from the gentle world, was all that was left. It was a quiet, terrifying thought as his ship led the Terran fleet not into the glory of battle, but into the calculated risk of a very dangerous puzzle. The binary stars of the Helios system burned with a cold, blue-white light. It was here the Void Reaper had come to charge its world-killing beam, drawing power from the stellar radiation. The broken remnants of the Deathworld Alliance fleet hung at the edge of the system, dark and powerless. From the cracked viewport of the Molten Fist, Commander Taiho watched the monster, a hateful black sliver against the stars. A flicker of movement on his long-range scanner caught his eye. The Terrans had arrived. His first reaction was confusion. Then, a slow-burning disbelief that curdled into despair. The Terran fleet did not form up. It did not advance in a mighty wedge or a proud battlesphere. It simply scattered, like seeds thrown into the solar wind. Tiny, insect-like ships, no larger than Alliance fighters, zipped in seemingly random patterns. He saw blocky, ugly utility vessels lumbering behind them, hiding in the gravitational shadow of a fragmented asteroid field. This was their salvation? This was the mighty Terran response? On the bridge of the stealth ship Shadows cast, Captain Daewon felt the weight of 1,000 gazes. He knew the Alliance was watching. He knew what they must be thinking. He took a slow breath. Mosquito Squadron Alpha, begin Phase 1. Deploy chaff field along Vector 7. Do not, I repeat, do not enter weapons range. The lead mosquito, piloted by a young woman named Hannah, pushed her throttles forward. Her ship was little more than an engine, a cockpit, and a payload bay. She weaved through the debris, her heart hammering against her ribs. The Void Reaper filled her entire view, a wall of darkness. She hit her release. Canisters shot out and burst, not with explosives, but with a cloud of reflective prismatic particles and a burst of scrambled electromagnetic noise. It was a visual and sensor smokescreen, placed directly in the path of the Reaper's main sensor array. The giant ship's course did not alter. But a fraction of a second later, a single, precise laser lanced from a point defense turret, vaporizing the cloud. It was an automated response, like a beast flicking away a gnat. It was exactly what Day One had hoped for. It seized the chaff as a minor targeting obstruction, he said, his voice calm in the command channel. It's following its protocol. Beta Squadron, your turn. Impulse wide dispersal now. Another swarm of mosquitoes darted in from a different angle. They unleashed a coordinated electromagnetic blast designed not to harm, but to confuse. For a brief moment, the Void Reaper's external sensor data would show a burst of static, a momentary blind spot in a specific narrow sector of its hull. Engineering teams. Go, A1 ordered Dot in the silent, airless shadow of the asteroid field. Specialist Sora gripped the handles inside her boarding pod. It was a cramped, coffin-like cylinder made of a dull, non-reflective ceramic. Its engine was a simple cold gas thruster, leaving no thermal trail. As the M-pulse washed over the Void Reaper, her pod, and 9 others just like it, shot forward. They were not fast. They were not impressive. They were pieces of drifting, silent stone, aimed with meticulous care at a single, unremarkable patch of the Leviathan's hull. Tay Ho watched, his knuckles white on the railing. What are they doing? He muttered. Those pods? They have no weapons. They'll be vaporized. But the Void Reaper did not vaporize them. The point defense lasers twitched, but did not fire. The pods did not register as weapons. They did not have power signatures above the background radiation of space. They were, for all the ship's advanced senses, just more debris. In the wake of the sensor-scrambling attacks, they were invisible. Sora's pod struck the hull with a soft, metallic clunk that vibrated through her bones. Magnetic clamps engaged silently. She was on. The surface was a landscape of dark, seamless alloy, still warm from absorbed starlight. Her team disembarked, their suits bulky and utilitarian. They moved not like commandos, but like repair technicians, which is what they were. They scanned the surface, their instruments searching for the subtle seams. The hairline fractures Sora had theorized. Found a conduit access. A voice, Engineer Bin, crackled in her helmet. It's like a service panel. Primitive. Almost as if the builders never thought anyone would try this. Or never thought anyone would be foolish enough to come up here without firing a shot first. Sora replied, her fingers already working on a toolkit. She pried the panel open, revealing a maze of pulsating fiber optic cables and crystalline data channels. She didn't cut them. She attached a delicate probe, a device designed to read the light-based information passing through without disrupting the flow. Back on the Shadows cast, data began to stream in. Lines of alien code, schematics of internal systems, power flow charts. Min Seok, linked directly from Seoul Station, was analyzing it in real time. It's a drone, he confirmed, his voice tight with excitement. Fully automated. No life signs, no central command crew. It's running on preset algorithms. Conservation, threat elimination, resource harvesting. Meanwhile, the dance of the mosquitoes continued. They were like flies buzzing around a titan's head, never staying still, never presenting a target long enough to warrant the main weapon. They fired tiny kinetic slugs that pinged harmlessly off the hull. They launched more chaff. They were an irritation, a persistent system error the Void Reaper was programmed to correct with minimal effort. Its vast attention was divided, cataloging these nuisances. Its powerful weapons tracking the swift, meaningless movements, while its deeper processes focused on drawing energy from the stars. For the Alliance Watchers, it was a bizarre, almost insulting spectacle. Battlemaster Yuna, on her crippled scout ship, watched a Terran mosquito skim so close to the Reaper's hull she was sure it would be destroyed. It wasn't. It banked away at the last second, having deposited a small, sticky sensor on the surface. "They are not fighting," Yuna said, her voice a mix of awe and confusion. "They are examining it." Sora, clinging to the dark hull, felt a vibration through her boots. A deep, rising hum. The Void Reaper was nearing full charge. "We're running out of time," she said. "The main weapon is cycling up. We need the core schematic now." Her probe dug deeper, bypassing security protocols that were designed to stop digital intrusion, not a physical tap on a cable. A flood of new data hit her screen. The internal layout of the ship, the location of the power core, and the system that contained it. "Admiral," she transmitted, her breath catching. "I have it. The core is a contained micro-singularity held in place by a network of external magnetic stabilizers. 8 primary nodes on the hull. They're like anchors. If their harmony is disrupted, the containment field wobbles." On the shadow's cast, Daywan leaned forward. "Can we disrupt them from out here?" Sora's voice was grim. "No, they're shielded against every energy type we have. They're designed to withstand the heat of a star and the force of a supernova." But she paused, calling up the node's structural scan. "The shielding is for energy. The nodes themselves are physical structures. They are made of a super-dense ceramic. If you could hit them with enough kinetic force, a direct physical impact, you could crack them." A silence fell over the Terran command channel. Kinetic force. The oldest weapon known to mankind. A thrown rock. Daywan looked at the tactical display, at the swarm of tiny ships, at the monstrous Void Reaper powering its ultimate weapon. They had found the key. Now they had to figure out how to hit the lock hard enough with a rock before the galaxy died. The vibration through the hull was becoming a steady, teeth-jarring thrum. Specialist Sora pressed a hand against the dark metal beneath her, feeling the immense power building within the Void Reaper. It was like touching the chest of a sleeping giant just as its heart began to beat with terrible purpose. The data stream from her probe was a river of light on her helmet display, showing the complex dance of energy converging towards the ship's core. "The stabilizer nodes," she said, her voice tight but clear over the comes to the shadow's cast. "They are not just shields. They are regulators. They maintain a perfect magnetic harmony to cage the singularity. Think of them as 8 tuning forks, all vibrating in the same exact note. If one is out of tune, the whole song falls apart." Admiral Minsiak's voice finished from light minutes away, his mind already racing through the implications. "But you said they are impervious to energy, and our mosquitoes don't carry torpedoes big enough to crack that ceramic." On his command deck, Captain Daywan was already moving. He brought up a schematic of the entire system. His eyes darted from the Void Reaper to the scattered debris field of the Alliance's failed stand, to the distant, heavy engineering vessels hiding in the asteroid shadow. "Sora, can you give us the precise location and structural weak point of each node?" "Transmitting coordinates and stress point maps now," Sora replied. Her team was scuttling across the hull, placing small inert beacons beside 2 of the massive dome-like nodes. Each node was the size of a Terran city block. "The weak points are here, at the base where the emission array meets the hull plating. A concentrated impact that would transmit a shockwave through the entire structure. Day 1 received the data. 8 points on a monstrous ship. They needed to hit at least 4 in a specific sequence. Sora's data suggested would cause a cascading feedback loop, all within a window of maybe 10 seconds. His fleet had agility and cunning, but no brute force. He looked again at the broken Alliance ships, symbols of wasted brute force. An idea, desperate and razor-thin, began to form. Admiral Jisoo, he opened a channel to Sol Station. We have a solution, but it requires the Alliance. We need their attention. Jisoo understood immediately. You need the anvil to draw its gaze so the hammer can fall unseen. Exactly. We need them to make one more attack. A direct, furious, suicidal charge. Something so loud it drowns out everything else. To ask warriors who had already sacrificed so much to throw themselves at certain death again was a terrible thing. Day 1 knew it. He opened a general channel, broadcasting to every surviving Alliance vessel. Commander Taiho, Battlemaster Yuna. This is Captain Day-1 of the Terran vessel Shadow's cast. We have identified a critical vulnerability. On the broken bridge of the Molten Fist, Taiho listened, his body aching from wounds and defeat. The Terran's voice was calm, devoid of the fiery pride he was used to. It spoke of magnetic harmonics and structural resonance. It sounded like madness. When Day-1 finished outlining the plan, the Alliance would launch a concentrated, head-on assault to trigger the Reaper's main weapon cycle, creating the exact energy dip and sensor focus the Terrans needed. Taiho felt a hollow laugh rise in his throat. You want us to die, Taiho said. His voice a gravelly scrape over the comb. So your little insects can throw stones? There was a pause. Yes, Day-1 said simply. There was no apology in the word, only stark necessity. Your sacrifice will not be to damage it. It will be to make it look at you, and only you, for 12 seconds. It is the only way. Battlemaster Yuna's face appeared on a secondary screen, her expression carved from stone. She had heard everything. She looked at Taiho, then at the image of the Void Reaper preparing to annihilate another world. She had lost her crew, her ship, her honor. This was not a chance to regain it. It was a chance to give it purpose. The Janji do not fear fire, Taiho said quietly, more to himself than anyone. He straightened his back, wincing at the pain in his ribs. He looked around his damaged bridge, at his surviving crew. Their eyes met his, and he saw no fear, only a grim acceptance. They were Deathworlders. This was how it ended. Not with a victory, but with a purpose. We will be your anvil, Terran. Do not miss with your hammer. Across the debris field, the few remaining Alliance vessels that could still move powered their crippled engines. A Bolsari heavy cruiser with a shattered stern used its maneuvering thrusters to turn. A Janji forward ship, leaking molten coolant, flared its drives. It was not a fleet. It was a funeral procession that the Void Reaper took note. Its internal threat assessment protocols, simple and brutal, identified the gathering of power signatures. The minor nuisances of the mosquitoes were relegated to secondary status. Here was a primary threat cluster, regrouping for another direct assault. It was a pattern it knew how to handle. The charging of the main sterilization beam paused, then diverted power. The massive apertures along its spearhead shape began to glow with a familiar, chilling white light. It's targeting us, Yuna reported, her hands steady on the controls of her patched-together ship. All vessels, maximum power to forward shields. Do not deviate. Our only task is to survive for 12 seconds. The Alliance ships, burning with the last of their power, flew straight at the heart of darkness. It was the bravest and most hopeless charge in their history. On the hull, Sora felt the shift. The vibrations changed frequency, focusing inward, preparing to release. It's happening, Energy is being drawn from the stabilizers to the main weapon. The nodes are in their most vulnerable state. From the shadow of the asteroids, the blocky Terran engineering ships emerged. Their cargo bays opened. What they deployed were not missiles or lasers. They were simple, massive, tungsten steel rods, 20 meters long and polished to a dull gray. They were called knockers, tools for breaking up asteroids for mining. Each rod was fitted with a basic chemical propellant booster. Yuan's mosquitoes swarmed in a final frantic dance, laying down every last bit of chaff and sensor fog between the engineering ships and the Void Reaper, creating a temporary tunnel of blindness in the electronic storm. All launchers. Synchronize firing solution on transmitted coordinates, Daewon ordered, his voice cold and precise. Sequence: Alpha, Gamma, Beta, Delta. Fire on my mark. The Void Reaper's weapon reached full power. A spear of pure erasure lanced out, engulfing the lead Alliance ship. It vanished into atomic dust. Mark. On the engineering ship Tenacious, a crewman named June hit a button. One after another, with simple pneumatic thumps, the tungsten rods were pushed into space. Their booster rockets ignited short, brutal burns that gave them just enough velocity. They were not guided. They were aimed like bullets from a rifle of immense size. They began to spin, stabilizing their flight. They flew into the sensor fog, invisible to the Void Reaper. Their target nothing but a set of numbers in a dead reckoning computer that the Alliance ships died, one by one, holding the monster's gaze. Taiho's molten fist took a glancing blow, shearing away its remaining weapons array. He was thrown to the deck, the lights failing. The tungsten rods, simple pieces of a metal harder than ceramic, exited the fog. For the last few kilometers, they were in clear space, unpowered, just kinetic projectiles following the immutable laws of physics. The Void Reaper's point defense lasers woke up, but too late. They were designed to track and destroy powered missiles, ships, energy signatures. These were just silent, stupid lumps of metal, already inside effective interception range. The first rod, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, struck stabilizer node Alpha at the precise weak point Sora had marked. It did not explode. It shattered. A catastrophic crack raced through the super-dense ceramic dome like lightning through glass. 1 second later, node Gamma ceased to exist, pulverized into dust. The harmony of the 8 tuning forks broke. The perfect magnetic field containing a tiny, starving black hole stuttered. The silence that followed was deeper than space. On the ruined bridge of the Molten Fist, Commander Taiho pushed himself up from the deck, blinking in the flickering emergency lights. The shuddering impact he had felt was not another blast from the Void Reaper. It had been a different kind of tremor, transmitted through the void itself. He stumbled to the cracked viewport, expecting to see the blinding light of the sterilization beam turning towards him for the killing stroke. He did not. The Void Reaper hung in space, immense and dark. But something was wrong. The chilling white glow at its weapon apertures had died. In its place, a different light was growing from within. Fissures of violent purple and blue energy, like trapped lightning, began to spiderweb across its obsidian hull, where the Terran's tungsten rods had struck. Plumes of exotic particles vented into the void, shimmering with unnatural colors. "It's not attacking," Taiho whispered, his voice raw dot from his vantage point on the hull. Specialist Sora saw it first. The magnetic stabilizer node beside her beacon wasn't just cracked. It was writhing. Energy arced from it to the next node, overloading it. The perfect contained system was now screaming in discord. Alarms blared in her helmet, not from her suit, but from the data stream of the ship itself. It was a ship-wide scream of critical failure. "Containment collapse in progress," she reported, her words quick and sharp. "We have to go." Now! Her team scrambled back to their pods, the magnetic clamps disengaging. They fell away from the dying giant, just as the internal light grew brighter, illuminating the vast plains of the hull from below like a hellish dawn. The Void Reaper began to groan. It was a sound that had no business in the vacuum, a deep, resonant shudder felt in the bones of every nearby ship. The fissures of light widened. Chunks of the impossibly tough hull, each the size of a mountain, silently calved away, spinning into the darkness. From within the widening cracks, a terrible gravitational pull began to manifest. The surrounding debris of the battle, the wreckage of Alliance ships, the shredded metal, the dust of the dead started to spiral inward, pulled towards the collapsing heart of the ship. Captain Day One, on the Shadows cast, watched the apocalyptic spectacle. All Terran vessels, full emergency retreat. Get clear of the gravitational shear. Mosquitoes, assist any Alliance ship that can't move under its own power. His orders were calm, but his face was pale. They had poked a hole in a dam holding back an ocean. Now they had to outrun the flood. The Terran ships, small and agile, darted away. The engineering vessels burned their engines hard. The mosquitoes, like tiny shepherd craft, zipped towards the crippled Alliance ships. One settled beside the drifting Molten Fist, using tiny tractors to nudge it towards a safer trajectory. Taiho watched the small Terran ship through his viewport, its pilot visible in the cockpit, face intent behind her visor. It was helping them, after he had dismissed them, after they had used his last stand as a distraction. A confusion of emotions warred inside him, gratitude, shame, and a dawning, staggering awe. The Void Reaper was coming apart. The center of the ship, where the micro-singularity had been so neatly caged, was now the heart of a violent, uncontrolled implosion. Space itself seemed to twist around it, with a final, silent convulsion that tore the remaining structure into a million fragments. The singularity consumed the last of its magnetic cage, and then, deprived of the technology that had created and sustained it, evaporated in a spectacular pulse of Hawking radiation. A wave of light and energy, harmless but blinding, washed outwards, illuminating the stunned faces on every bridge. Then there was nothing. Only an expanding cloud of ultrafine, superheated debris and a silence so complete it was deafening. The deadliest ship in the galaxy was gone. On the Shadows cast, the bridge was quiet. They had done it. The data was still streaming, the screens full of confirmations. No one cheered. They simply breathed, the weight of what they had just orchestrated settling onto their shoulders. The first communication came through. It was Battlemaster Yuna. Her video feed was grainy, her face smudged with soot and exhaustion. She looked into the camera for a long moment. "Your stones," she said, her voice hoarse. "They worked." There was no praise in it, just a statement of incomprehensible fact. Then, a direct channel from the Molten Fist opened. Commander Taiho's face filled the screen on Dewan's bridge. He looked older, the scars on his face standing out in the harsh light. He was silent, his dark eyes searching, as if trying to see the people behind the technology, behind the clever plan. Finally, he spoke. "You did not fight its strength." His words were slow, careful, as if each one was a stone he was turning over in his mind. "You asked it a question it could not answer." On Sol Station, Admirals Jisoo and Min Seok heard the words. Jisoo allowed herself a small, tired smile. It was the closest to understanding they would get, and it was enough. In the days that followed, the Terran engineering vessels became rescue ships, hauling crippled Alliance hulks to stable orbits. Medics treated wounds. Engineers shared power to run life support. The Deathworlders, accustomed to solving problems with muscle and will, watched as the Terrans solved problems with patch cables, jury-rigged systems, and a quiet, relentless competence. At a formal debrief held over the comms, Tai-Hao and Yuna sat with the Terran command. The Alliance warriors spoke of honor and sacrifice, of the courage of their fallen. The Terrans spoke of systemic vulnerabilities and kinetic impact coefficients. The languages were different, born of different worlds. But as the meeting ended, Tai-Hao looked at Baywan, then at the image of Jisoo and Minseok. The Alliance believed we were the strongest, he said. We were wrong. Strength has many faces. You have shown us one we did not know. He paused, a new respect in his gaze. The next time a threat comes, we would be honored to fight beside you, not just as an anvil, but as partners. The message was sent across the Terran networks. On Earth, in cities that had never known the threat of a supervolcano or a crushing gravity, people celebrated not a victory of arms, but a victory of thought. They had not sent their strongest warriors. They had sent their smartest problem solvers. And in the endless cold dark of space, a new kind of legend was born. The legend of the soft people from the gentle world who looked at a god of destruction and saw not a monster, but a machine in need of fixing, and who had the courage to pick up the right tool.